Good morning, everybody. Well, it's a nice, still, calm morning. Good time to connect with God, and a good time to get your questions out. Our study this morning, we've had a request to teach about the book Habakkuk, which is the prophet's name. He and a few others are known as minor prophets, not because they're underage or not important, just because their books are small, and that is the only reason that there's a difference between major and minor. His book is 3 chapters. I'm going to read some of the commentary because it does a good job of filling you in. Always understand, anytime you read anything out of the Bible, pray, get connected with God so you're getting the true teacher to teach you. As a Christian, you have the Spirit to teach you. If you're not a Christian, you won't ever understand this book, because the strongest man in the world doesn't understand this book. He knows it word for word, Satan, but he doesn't understand it because he doesn't have the Spirit to teach him. So if you're not a Christian, be one. Accept Christ. But if you are a Christian, let the Spirit teach you. I teach some common stuff all the time when I get people telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about. I didn't get quiet to get with God. So much of this stuff has dual meanings or ambiguous meanings, and only the Spirit will define it. And you've also got to look at, if you read something on one page, it should not contradict something else, either in the book that you're reading or in another book. Everything should be in alignment. Words are important. So, Habakkuk basically, in summary, does the one thing that we all respectfully want to do. Ask God why. Why are the times so bad? Why are the people so bad? Why aren't you doing anything? The answer to all these things is that He loves us, and in usual cases, He is doing something. We just don't see it. But because He is so loving, He will let us fail. He will let us do things we shouldn't do. One, to educate us, to see why we shouldn't do it. If you teach somebody that lesson, you don't have to follow them around and make sure they don't do it again. They will have learned that lesson. Times were not good when this was written. Where are they? He's flying low. I love the sounds of nature out here like this. All right, so I'm going to get into this. I'm just going to read some of the summary instructions, how to read the book. It's part of this. I might read some of the commentary within it. To find the book, it's like 5 books back in the Old Testament. And it's not very big, so don't be flipping lots of pages. I think I've got 1, 2.5. Looking at both sides of the page, I got 2.5 pages. Okay, what questions would you ask God about the state of the nation and the world? It's quite possible that your questions echo those asked by the man named Habakkuk. Now, he was respectful. Some of these may be seemingly pointed questions, may be seemingly attacking God, but he's not. He's acting respectfully, and that's the key. You can ask God anything if you're respectful, sincere about it, and have faith. Not much is known about Habakkuk except that he was a prophet with the courage to ask God some difficult questions. Well, we don't have to ask him again because we're going to get the answers. If somebody's already gone to the trouble of risking God's wrath, but God doesn't deal wrath that way. Through those questions, he received a divine message, not just of impending judgment, but of eventual hope and deliverance. When things are bad around us like they are now, is there going to be a solution? Yeah. That's why we have the prophets to tell us. And we have Jesus to tell us. He told us about these times. A number of times. And his good friend John also told us. So there's no reason for us to be surprised. Now, when we look around and we like things to be better, they're not going to be. Praying for things to be better would actually be praying against the will of God. So be careful. Now, we can say, I would love it to be better, but I know it can't be. Jesus in the garden, before he went to the cross, Father, if you can take this cup from me, but not my will be done, thy will be done. We may question, but we go ahead and do what we're told to do. Okay. For historical references, we can place 3 chapters of Habakkuk on the pages of 2 Kings 23, 2 Chronicles 35. Nevertheless, we could paste this message of this little book on the front page of any world newspaper today. It's very, very timely, even though it was written 2,600 years ago anyway. There was great unrest in the Middle East, political upheaval and shifting of the balances of power, brutal armies in Iraq and Syria, and continual violence against the little spot on the map called Israel. Okay, here's some of the dates, just so you can place this. In 612 BC, Nineveh, the capital of Assyria, the prevailing power that had conquered the northern kingdom, in 722 BC, fell to the Babylonians. Well, guess what? The Babylonians are back. In 609, Josiah, the last good king of Judah, remember, Israel became a split country. They didn't have the same belief systems. Their foundations were not as stable as they should have been. Israel to the north, without the temple, continued on with some of the tribes, and Judah to the south with the remainder, but it had the temple. Without the temple, they couldn't do what they were required to do, so they weren't very stable, and they were the first to fall. But there was unrest all throughout the area, and Israel today is more stable, but they have the same problem today that they had back then. There weren't enough true believers. I keep telling you this all the time. Most Jews in Israel are not believers in God or the law the way they should be. Most of them are there simply because it's their home. It's advertised as their home. Everybody knows it. And they're not persecuted there. Not the way they are around the world. Now, they got to deal with wars and countries that don't like them all around them. It's the same as today. In 605 BC, Babylon, ruled by King Nebuchadnezzar, defeated Assyria and Egypt. So they were surrounded back then. by countries that didn't like them. And then another country comes in and defeats their enemies, but then puts their sights on them. There was no human power left to protect Judah from this raging horde that threatened their very existence. By Jehoiakim, king of Judah, while Jehoiakim was the king of Judah, Nebuchadnezzar besieged Jerusalem for the first of 3 times. They came in their attack. It took them 3 times to finally conquer them and haul them off to Babylon. Okay, 586 BC was the final time, including taking Daniel to Babylon. That's where he faced the lion's den. Okay, well, that's the history of it, and let's see how it applies today. Starts off, the burden which the prophet Habakkuk saw. O Lord, how long shall I cry, and you will not hear? You ask God for something and you're not getting an answer? Even cry out to you violence, and you will not save. Why do you show me iniquity and cause me to see all these troubles? For plunder and violence are before me. There is strife and contention arising. Therefore the law is powerless, and justice never goes forth, and the wicked surround the righteous. Does that not fit today? We see what they're doing. We see what the country is going through. Now, we've been very well protected because our founding fathers set this country up very, very well. It took them a long time to tear it down. But Satan's good, and he's persistent, and he never sleeps. Okay, that was starting in chapter 1, verse 1, by the way. Look among the nations and watch. Be utterly astounded. This is God's reply. For I will work a work in your days which you would not believe, even though it were told to you. For indeed I am raising up the Chaldeans, a bitter and hasty nation, which marches through the breadth of the earth to possess dwelling places that are not theirs. There's another conquering country out there. They are terrible and dreadful. Their judgment and their dignity proceed from themselves. Their horses are swifter than the leopards and more fierce than evening wolves, hungry wolves. Their charges charge ahead. Their cavalry comes from afar. They fly as an eagle that hastens to eat. They come for violence. Their faces are set like the east wind. Bitter. They gather captives like sand. They scoff at kings, and princes are scorned by them. They deride every stronghold, for they heap up earthen mounds and seize it. Which is, by the way, how they took Masada. Not the same group, but consistent. Then his mind changes and he transgresses. He commits offense, ascribing this power to his God. So God's going to deal with it. These countries. Now, Babylon was not destroyed even in its original form. When they were at Babel, they were scattered. And to a degree, even though they were ruthless at first, they let Israel return to their country after 70 years. So therefore, God will be lenient on them and just scatter them and not kill them off. But the other countries, none of these other countries, except for Egypt, really exist. starting in 12 now. We're going to get the second question. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die. O Lord, have you appointed them for judgment? Rock, you have marked them for correction. O rock, you have marked them for... Calling God as rock. You are the pure eyes. You are the pure eyes then to behold evil, and cannot look at wickedness. Why do you look on these who deal such treachery, and hold your tongue while the wicked devours? A person more righteous than he. Why do you have men like fish of the sea, like creeping things that have no ruler over them? They take up all of them with a hook. They catch them with their net. They gather them in their dragnet. Therefore they rejoice and are glad. Therefore they sacrifice to their net. Well, we have a net too. It's called the internet. And people are going to be sacrificing to it. That's called AI. Very much in common. But basically he's saying, how can you look at all this stuff and let it continue on? Again, God does not punish people. He lets them punish themselves. By them not paying attention and preparing themselves and trusting God, other countries just come right in and take over. They punish them. The same thing's going to happen when we start the tribulation. The bowls and the trumpets are basically man's problem. Things that they've done. The wrath of God isn't until after the abomination. The bowl judgments. But again, they're things that they could have prevented. Okay. Where were we? They burn their sacrifices to their net and burn incense to their dragnet, because by them their share is sumptuous and their food plentiful. Shall they therefore empty their net and continue to slay nations without pity? How long are you going to let them keep doing this? Then he comes in, I will stand my watch. I will set myself on the rampart and watch to see what he will say to me, and what I will answer when I am corrected. Okay, God, tell me I'm wrong, please. All these bad things are happening and you're doing nothing. Tell me I'm wrong. Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision and make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it. We're running a race, remember. For the vision is yet for the appointed time. You want these people punished. They will be. But not immediately. They haven't done their job fully. They have to punish the world for their behavior. But at the end, it will speak and it will not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Why is God taking so long? 2,000 years of the church age. Why? Well, first off, he's God and he can have his own reasons without telling us. But he has told us. We're to save as many as we can during this age. He's going to deal with his own people. He's made provisions for his own people. He made provisions for us through Paul and the other disciples. And we have this moment of time where he's sharing his kingdom with the non-chosen, essentially. Even as a Gentile, our name can be in the book of life. But the chosen, his Jewish people, his children of Israel, they rejected him. So they're going to have to wait before he deals with them. In 2,000 years, to him, that's nothing. It may be coming to an end this year. All the predictors seem to say that 2023 seems to be the final chapter. Two cranes just landed over by my tent. Cool. I'd go try to take a picture. You may have seen them flying behind me. I don't know. I wasn't paying attention. But if I try to get over there, they'd run away. Animals don't trust man for good reason. And finishing off the thought here, I didn't finish that. Behold the proud, his soul is not upright in him, but the just shall live by faith. See, God doesn't change. This is written a few hundred years BC. And God is the same. Verse 5. We're in chapter 2, by the way, because I'm continuing to read. Verse 5. Indeed, because he transgressed by wine, he is a proud man, and he does not stay at home, because he enlarges his desire as hell. And he is like death and cannot be satisfied. You can't be satisfied in hell. Only in heaven. He gathers to himself all nations and heaps up for himself all prophets. Will not all these take up a proverb against him and a taunting riddle against him and say, woe to him who increases? Satan continues. Woe to him who increases what is not his. How long? And to him who loads himself with many pledges. Will not your creditors rise up suddenly? Will they not awaken who possess you, oppress you? And you will become their booty, because you have plundered many nations. All the remnant of the people shall plunder you because of men's blood. And the violence of the land and the city and of all that dwell in it. Woe to him who covets evil game for his house. Many people follow in the pattern and the footsteps of Satan. They have set his nest on high that he may be delivered from the power of disaster. You give shameful counsel to the house, cutting off many peoples, and sin against your soul. For the stone will cry out from the wall. And when Jesus was walking around and they told him to be silent, he said, if you make these little ones silent, the stones will cry out. Woe to him who builds a town with bloodshed, who establishes a city by iniquity. Behold, it is not of the Lord of hosts that the peoples labor to feed the fire, and the nations weary themselves in vain. For the earth will be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord. Woe to him who gives drink to his neighbor, pressing him to the bottle, even to make him drunk, that he may look at his nakedness, and filled with shame instead of glory. You also drink. Do not be controlled by these things, and do not use them to manipulate others, and to be exposed as uncircumcised. The cup of the Lord's right hand will be turned against you, and utter shame will be on your glory. For the violence done to Lebanon will cover you, and the plunder of beasts which made them afraid, because of men's blood and the violence of the land of the city, and all that dwell in it. You look at what's going on now. This stuff has been going on from the beginning of time for men. Go all the way back to the beginning. Am I my brother's keeper? Well, the answer is yes. So don't kill your brother. What profit is the image that its maker should carve it? A molded image, a teacher of lies, a maker of its mold should trust it to make mute idols. Idol worship going on, big time. Woe to him who says to the wood, awake, to silent stone, arise, it shall teach. Behold, it is overlaid with gold and silver, yet there is no breath at all. No matter how fancy your idol is, it has no power. But the Lord in his holy temple, let all the earth keep silence before him. Only the God is worthy. Chapter 3. This is going by real fast. A prayer to Habakkuk the prophet. O Lord, I have heard your speech and was afraid. O Lord, revive your work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make it known. In wrath, remember mercy. God came to man, the Holy One, from Mount Paran. He stood and measured the earth. He looked and started the nations. And the everlasting mountains were scattered. The perpetual hills bowed. His ways are everlasting. I saw the tents of Cushan in affliction. The curtains of the land of the Midian trembled. O Lord, were you displeased with the rivers? Was your anger against the rivers? Was your wrath against the sea, that you rode on the horses, your chariots of salvation? Your bow was made quite ready. Oaths were sworn over the arrows. Selah, that was a prayer. And divided earth with rivers, and mountains saw you and trembled. Overflowing by the water passed by. The deep utterance of voice lifted its hands on high. The sun and the moon stood still in their habitation, and the light of your arrows went. God is all-powerful. Even the mountains tremble. At the shining of your glittering spear, you marched through the land in indignation. You trampled the nations in anger. You went forth for the salvation of your people, for salvation with your anointed. You struck the head of the house of the wicked, by laying bare the foundation to the neck. Another Selah, another prayer. You thrust through with his own arrows the head of his villages. They came out like a whirlwind to scatter me. They rejoiced. Their rejoicing was like the fasting on the poor in secret. You walked through the sea with your horses, through the heap of great waters. When I heard, my body trembled, my lips quivered at the voice. Rottenness entered my bones, and I trembled in myself, that I might rest in the day of trouble. When it comes up to the people, he will invade them with his troops. So God does have a plan, a method, but it's his timing. And in 17, though the fig tree may not blossom, nor fruit be on its vines, though the labor of the olive may fail, and the fields yield no food, though the flock may be cut off from the fold, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. No matter how bad it gets, you will rejoice in the Lord. I will joy in the God of my salvation. The Lord God is my strength. He will make my feet like deer feet, and he will make me walk on high hills. to the chief musician with my stringed instruments. He will continue to play music in celebration of God, no matter how bad it gets. And it's going to get bad. We'll be out of here before the worst of it, but it's bad now. Again, like I say, the United States has never felt the persecution that we're in now. Has never had such corruption that these people come right out and lie to you, right to your face, just outright lie, and you know it's a lie, but you can't do anything about it. Don't get caught up in it. These burdens are not ours. Hand them to God. Just pass them on. You're at a big banquet table that God set before you. Take some of the stuff you want and pass it on. If you don't want it, don't deal with it. It's God's anyway. All right, so we've got a lot of stuff coming. Don't worry about it. They've been through this before and survived and continued to have faith and worship God, which is what we need to do. Don't look at the things going on around. Don't look at the waves like Peter. When he focused on Jesus, he walked on water, which means we can walk on water. Jesus said, "Greater things than these you will do." I think we're getting to the time where we're going to start seeing outward miracles, because we know that the Antichrist is going to have some. And just like with Moses threw his staff down, it turned into a snake, Pharaoh's magicians did the same thing. If you can do it, I can do it. Now Moses' snake ate their snake, so they were a cheap copy. Everything from Satan is a cheap copy. Nothing original comes from him. But he is consistent. And God has given us plenty of examples of how he does things. And we deal with them the same way, by listening to God and passing them on to him. Don't get involved. This is not a physical war on this planet, even though it looks like it. It's a spiritual war. Carry on in the spiritual realm. And be prepared. We will have prayers answered, major ones. The faith of a mustard seed. If you say to this mountain, move from here to here, it will move. Just the faith of a mustard seed. I need to get some mustard seeds and bring them in and let you see how small they are if you don't really know. They're not grains of sand. They're bigger, but they're not. They're the smallest seed out there. We've seen some pretty small seeds. Keep your eyes on God at all times. Trust him. He knows what he's doing. He's already laid this timeline out. He doesn't have to lay it out again. He doesn't have to make changes to it. He's laid it out. Are we predestined? No. But he knows us so well, he knows when we turn to the right or to the left, and he makes provisions for it ahead of time. Now, if you don't understand something out of the Bible and you want to understand it, pray to God until he teaches you. But be willing to accept the instruction. It may be different than you suppose, and that may be why you don't understand it. But God is consistent. All right. I don't know how much longer we got. We can see everything falling apart in the world. We can see all the countries around Israel lining up. Israel's continuing to defend itself, but at this point in time, there's really no one to help them. God will be the only solution to their problem, which is the way he wants it. Until they turn to him They may be on their own. But that's why sometimes we have trouble. When things are bad, who do we turn to? God. Well, that may be the very reason that you had trouble. It may be that you wandered off as well. Listen to God and follow His instruction. Till we meet in the clouds, God bless. Someone said in my comments today that this river looks really calm. Technically, this is not the river, but it's part of it. The main river is still off to the left of your picture. This is actually a lake, but it's connected to the river. The river keeps it full of water, but it is not the river. It's just a little still, calm place off to the side. And this is my view. Every morning I get to look at this. It is quite big. There can be boats come through here. It's not real deep, so you got to be careful. Stay in the channel. And it goes way beyond to the left up there. Beautiful shade trees. I can hear cars off in the distance. I can hear fish jumping. Just heard one. Be still and know that He is God. Blessings, everybody.